Welcome to the Soul Engineering Your Life podcast. I'm Ravi Tangri, your Soul Engineer. I work with business owners, CEOs, and professionals to help them grow their business and get their life back. And this podcast is designed to help you step out of the busyness, out of the crazy, and bring more heart and soul into all of your life.
Check it out, check it out. Oh, are you ready for this?
It's the spring of 2000. I'm just over a month away from my wedding, which is going to be in our backyard. And now I've just signed a contract for work that's going to take me out of town for 3 of the 5 weeks leading up to our wedding. This did not go over well when I told my fiance. I feel like I'm losing control of things. So many things are pulling at me, demanding my attention: work, the wedding, my fiance, my soon-to-be stepsons. All the wedding details, catering, confirming guest lists, getting tables, chairs, and a tent set up in the backyard, porta potties. We're on a septic system, so we have to have them with so many people. And so much more, as well as preparing for this new client work, getting ready to move into my fiance's house, and so much more. I am just so overwhelmed. I have to get away. There's a park near me on the ocean, and there's a hidden rock up on a path overlooking the water that I go to often to clear my head. That's my anchor, my spot to ground and release. Sitting there, I realize I've gone through this overwhelm before, whenever I've gone through major change. It's a pattern that goes back to when I was young. It just got hardwired into me. Once I realize this, I know what to do. I've learned enough Jedi Mind Tricks to dissolve the pattern and to find the way forward. I go back home and I sit down with my fiance and a wall-sized month-in-view calendar and a list of everything we have to do. It's a total mess, and we need a clear vision. She's getting pretty stressed. We put in all the times I'm away on the calendar, and then I put away the list of to-dos. My fiance looks at me like I've totally lost my mind. The first thing I put in the calendar now are the dates for the two of us, and then dates for us with her 2 sons, my new stepsons. With every one of these dates I put in, she's getting more and more stressed. So I explained to her that without those dates, we'll never pull out of the spiral. We'd be overwhelmed and exhausted right through our wedding and beyond. Then we pull out the list of everything we have to do. And you know what? It all fits in. It's not rocket science after all. You have to nurture yourself first. Then everything else will get done. All right. Welcome, folks. I am here with Cate Collins, who is a reformed, burned out leader who also has a whole lot of experience in as a mental health counselor that she's brought into working with leaders and teams. And she has just launched a brand new book called The Powerhouse in You, which I'm absolutely loving. Welcome, Cate.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about your journey and how you got to The Powerhouse in You. You started as a mental health counselor. You moved into leadership in a nonprofit, and then you moved in this wonderful world of stepping out into entrepreneurship. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, really, I guess the birth started, or the seed got planted anyway, before the birth of when I had my own burnout. I was in a very dysfunctional organization. There was a lot of bureaucracy. There was a lot of toxicity. And I had a pretty abusive boss, to be transparent, emotionally abusive boss. And so I ended up taking stress leave, which back then, oh gosh, it just was not sexy. It was not common. And I remember, the door being slammed in my office, "You're done today." And my doctor was pretty shaming as well. We later had a visit so I could share how I felt about that. But ultimately I was trying to be all things to everybody. I really, when I look back, everybody else defined me. You see, I didn't end up just becoming a mental health counselor. I mean, I was the peacekeeper in my family of origin. And so it's just naturally part of who I am. It's a strength, and it can be a shortcut if I'm not on top of it. So literally it came from that time. So ironically, this type A personality, while I'm off on my stress leave, a former boss of mine and very good friend said, "Cate, we don't talk about burnout enough. We don't talk about, the stresses that we experience in our field." So I created a stress management course on my stress leave, type A there. And I ended up taking it on the road, and I just shared it with, various not-for-profits. And I really, something clicked, and people felt it was very useful, very helpful. So I've been really a bit of a research junkie since then. And I'm really, and the irony is that oftentimes it's the 101 stuff that we forget and we put aside, but it has the most impact. So for me, it was really about helping people step into their power, because quite frankly, I had given my power away. And I didn't know it.
Now that's interesting, because and we spoke earlier that there's a quote right at the beginning of your book that just, as I went through your book, it just kept resonating, pulling me back. It's very powerful, and I suspect a lot of people will react in ways. You said when you first read it, but the quote was by someone that said, "There are no victims, only volunteers."
Mm-hmm. So when I read it, like you said, what? Here I am. I'm working in an organization that I believe I'm doing very good work. However, don't tell me that I'm volunteering for this boss that's treating me unkind and creating a lot of havoc and wreckage for this organization. And I'm a single mom at the time, and I can't go out on my own, and how dare you? All of these things came up. And then once kind of it all settled in, I went, wait a minute here. You stayed many years after, even though that was the context. You knew now what you were getting into, eyes wide open. I mean, I didn't go to the interview saying, "Oh, sure, bring it on. Anything. You're going to be abusive. You're going to be dysfunctional. You're going to be toxic. Oh, sign me up." I certainly did not do that. However, once I became aware of what was happening, then it was very clear that, there was no victims. I'm a huge fan of, I must take 100% responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. Now, I won't lie to you. There were times in my life where, I had pity parties. And no matter how good the food was, eventually people stopped coming to the party. And so for me, it was about having to really take responsibility of, I'm not responsible for somebody else's inappropriate behavior. Absolutely. If it's been abusive, it's been unkind, whatever. However, I am responsible for how I choose to respond and that if I choose to keep keeping myself in that position, and I've done that in different areas of my life, personally and professionally, and again, not blaming myself. It's just a matter of taking responsibility to say, it's easy to do this because our society enforces that. Blame everybody else, when the truth of it was the power was in me owning it and saying, you got a choice here, girl. What do you want to do? And that was it. It was in the choice.
And that's the thing that's really interesting, is that people often, when you say you're not a victim, they automatically go to blame and guilt. That seems to be the only option, but there is this other third choice of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we grow wings, you see, is that when I stop, doing the blame game, when I stop complaining, when I stop, being that martyr, being that victim, then what happens is that's when I'm free to choose what I want to choose. I think that the dilemma is that we get so busy, and that's when I work with leaders in my coaching, part of my business, is that we're so busy just trying to get through our days. We're so busy just trying to check off the things we need to do that we don't take that time. That 10-second pause is what I refer to say, is this really working for me? Am I showing up in my best self?
Right.
Is this situation one that's nourishing my soul, or is it doing harm? And I think that that's something that we need to get back to. And not that I ever want to have a pandemic. Please be clear. I don't want people to die or get sick. However, I believe there's gifts in everything that comes our way. And I think for me, the big gift is to take that pause. What's happening here that I'm liking? What is happening here that, maybe some parts of my life weren't working, but I was so busy on that stress treadmill that I didn't really pay attention.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, there's people that are going through pain and suffering, and I feel for them. But there's also been a gift in that I think so many people avoided facing what wasn't working in their lives.
Absolutely.
And they busied themselves. We had a disease of busyness. Mm-hmm. And what 2020 did was it said, stop. You are going to sit and stop and be still. And you can only Netflix for so long.
Right. And I think, and it's a good point that you're saying that, because we do again like a badge of honor. Oh yeah, I spend the day and I just Netflix all day. And please understand, I'm not suggesting anybody that's watching this that that's a bad thing. The last thing I want to do is shame you. Been there, done it. I think for me, it's really about, let's get back to actually taking the time to feel. If you ever, I authored a DVD many years ago called Parenting Through the Eyes of a Child. And when you watch children play, it's quite magical because they're in the precious present. And it's like, give me that toy. They're mad. They're angry. And then they release it. And then it's like, okay, I've got to play fair here most of the time. And so there is that beautiful authenticity about what's going on, but they're feeling. They know that the importance of feeling and loving with all their heart and forgiving with all their heart. And then what happens later is, of course, we so-called grow up, and then we start to numb out how we feel, right?
Right. So what we've been dancing around, I think one of the things in your book, which is about how we so often give away our power. Mm-hmm. Right? Can you say a bit more about that? How do we give our power away? Because I think people do accept less in general of who.
I agree. And so I had the good fortune to be trained by a shaman. And a shaman is basically somebody from the indigenous culture who is, they teach you the indigenous ways. And that's where I really learned that, around even like in the true essence of it. And so, we all rob other people of our power, whether we're manipulating them or consciously aware of it or not consciously aware of it. We could be, dominating in what we're doing, in our posture and body posture and our tone of voice, demanding things, controlling things. I think that, again, sometimes we forget that, particularly when we're afraid, which most of us are these days because of the constant changes that are occurring around us, then what's happening is then we're sometimes getting into either passive behavior, which is giving away the power, of course, or dominating posturing, which of course is sometimes taking people's power. So I think we do it all the time. We do it when somebody mistreats us and says things and we just suck it up. I think that it can happen when we're in a relationship with somebody, which ultimately we're in a relationship with everybody, whether it's with ourselves or with our family members, or with a significant other. And what happens is that sometimes, again, we don't speak our truth. Imagine what the world would be like if we actually told the truth in all of our relationships. And I love that phrase, say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And I think that, isn't that kind of cool? And so I got to be able to own the fact that, you know what, I didn't like how you said that. Now, please understand, I'm not saying every single thing someone says, because I feel like we're all walking around with this 3rd-degree sunburn on us right now. So everything is getting to us. And so we're feeling like trapped animals for some. And so for me, it's really around being able to take that 10-second pause and then ask ourselves, what is it I want to say here that's going to be respectful? And I want to speak my truth. Hey, you know what? That really hurt me when you said it like that. I don't know if you noticed that, but that you said it this way, but that really hurt. So in the future, I'd like this. So one of the things in the Indigenous culture is the talking stick. And I think it's so powerful. When that person is holding the talking stick, nobody else is talking. They're not thinking about what they're going to say, which our culture is known for. I got to give a brilliant response, or I've got to have a defense here. They're just fully present. They're in that mindful moment of holding the space for that person to share. So I think that for me, it starts with me truthfully and it ends with me. So when I work with leaders and their teams, it's helping them take away all of that, because that's just distractions. That's all that is. It's distractions. It's really about, it starts with me and it ends with me. And so I must be 100% responsible, and I must also be able to take time out for myself, which is really what the book was about with my 4 rooms. And that really was, again, from a friend of mine who's an Indigenous friend, and said, Cate, in our tribe, this is many, many years ago, he said, in our tribe, we believe that in order to stand into our power, in order for us to step into our purpose, in order for us to have balance, I know that word sometimes has a negative connotation today, it's more of a work-life blend, but he said, we need to enter each of these 4 rooms every day. So because of my Pilates background, I've tweaked things. And so it's basically, making sure you're stepping into your mentally fit room every day, your emotionally fit room every day, your physically fit room every day, and your spiritually fit room every day. And so what that means is, there could be some rooms that literally have got the X on it. It's like there's been a crime scene. Some of them may have so much cobwebs in them, you haven't even been in them in a while. So part of it is creating kind of that muscle, much like going to the gym, right? Is just getting ourselves thinking about, I'm feeling off. I'm not myself. Which room is kind of screaming at me to check into? And then that's where the journey really starts for me.
So tell me more about these rooms and the rituals in that, because I understand a little bit of I've done some journeying myself and such. Mm-hmm. So tell me about how you make these rooms work. And how
I have to say, they've been such a game changer for me, and I'm so excited about them. They really are. And I don't know about you, but I find that, again, practice what you preach. So you kind of, oh, right, that's what's happening. And then I have mentors hold up it's like, cheaper, she did read my book, didn't she? Because she'll say, could it be your emotionally fit room? I'm like, oh, take off. And I go, you're so right. So with your mentally fit room, there's a variety of different things in the book, of course, the Powerhouse in You, how to lead with greater resilience, courage, and confidence. But for me, it's really about how you start your day shapes your day. That's such a big deal. We're a society where we jump out of bed. Okay, maybe go pee first. And then maybe we're intravenously hooked up to the caffeine. And then we wonder why we're on our technology right away. In the bedroom, right? It's in the bedroom. And we wonder why we're racing through our day. We're wondering why we've got these heart palpitations. And the reality is that anxiety, at the core of anxiety, is not trusting the process of life. So part of it is creating that pause before you even enter into your day is a big deal. So I call it the power of 4. And the first thing is that start your day with meditation, prayer, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. So usually when we get to physically, of course, speak, whether it's 100 or 300 people, I ask people, how many of you meditate? And there might be 20%, if that,
Right.
their hand up. And I go, oh no, you all need to have your hand up because you're meditating on your problems. What we just simply need to do is shift it and just be aware of when you're doing the dishes. Do the dishes, be present. So with the first thing, it's really about starting your day with that really nice sense of quietness and being with your breath. The second part of that Power 4 is to get up and move your body. Now that we're working from home, sometimes we've got kids there of all ages. We've got our four-legged babies where normally you'd be perhaps in an office. Now all of a sudden they're loving all this attention and they're thinking you stayed home for them. Working across from you. And so there's a lot of distractions, right? So what we want to do here is we want to get up and move our body. So if that is a walk, if that is getting an online, yoga or fitness class, whatever works for you, just move your body. And I've incorporated in there, which I think is an important one, and I know it's really sprung true for me lately, is that while you're doing the movement, be reflecting on what is it you're most proud of that you've accomplished in the last 24 hours. You see, it's so easy for us to go next, and feel completely like, oh my gosh, I'm just like a hamster on that wheel. We need to take that 10-second pause and say, let me think about that. Yeah, that feels good. I did accomplish this yesterday. I did go for the walk at lunchtime. I did take a break. I did set my alarm ask Suri to remind me to take a break. I did, say no when I felt no. I said yes when I felt yes. Because you see, that's what's going to build our confidence up. It's a really important thing. Third thing is gratitude. We know we've heard of this for years and years and years. And I believe gratitude is an attitude word. On Saturday morning, I just felt this. I don't know. I was looking at the birds and just feeling so entranced by them and feeling very mindful. And I chose to reach out to all the significant people in my life and just send them a text about, how much they mattered to me, my children and my spouse who lived in the same house, and but really poured into them what specifically I valued in them. And I can't tell you the joy that I felt. I was crying while I was typing it, or putting it in, but it was so important for me. I didn't want to have words not spoken. And so gratitude is something that we need to really, not just say it. We need to do it. How can I do that act of kindness? And the fourth of the Power of 4 is my intention. My shaman actually gave me this, and I love it, for my birthday one year. And it's, what is my intention for the day? How do I want to show up? So I know I've got maybe courageous conversations I have to have with some of my team members, or maybe I've got a whirlwind day. What's my intention? So for me, playfulness is a big deal, because sometimes my underwear can get too tight. I'll be truthful. It can get too tight. I can be in my head. And it's like, no, you want to be playful. You want to be present. Life is about being joyful. So that's some of the things. So again, I might take that 10-second pause before a meeting and go, how do I want to show up here? I want to be mindful. I want to be present. I want to active listen. How can I serve? And
as
so
opposed to just rushing in.
Right, which is what we kind of do. It's like that next, right? So that's kind of just giving you a glimpse into, I could go on with room. So I'll give you a glimpse into room number 1. Room number 2 is your emotionally fit room.
Just as we get into that, I think there's a bit of emotion that you touched on there, where you said when the text, you felt such joy. And to stop to be playful, why do you think so many people are so resistant to feel, to stop and get into the feeling, as opposed to up here in your head, live from the neck up and busy, busy, busy? Why is it that we're so resistant?
Good question. Really good question. I think I'm only speaking for myself. So when I think about pre-burnout, which is many moons ago, I think what happened is I was running from myself. I was running from the fact that in that case, I was in a very unhealthy marriage. And so I was keeping myself busy to not really look at the fact that I had to get honest with myself about this isn't working. This isn't working and I need to take action. I think that what happens is that sometimes, at least the people that I work with, is that they're afraid that Humpty Dumpty will fall apart. and they won't be able to come back together again. And that's such an illusion. It's the opposite. When we go towards, what happens is then we feel and then we can let go. But the reality is people will say to me, oh no, had perfect childhood, great experience. Really? And you've got all of this happening with all of your relationships. There seems to be a disconnect here. Now, I'm not here to tell people whether they have a healthy childhood or they don't. But what I'm saying is that it shows up in our behavior. See, all of our relationships are a mirror of how we treat ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I think that part of that is that we're afraid to feel. First of all, the culture supports it. Number one, don't feel, get distracted on Netflix. Don't feel, go have a drink. Don't feel, go buy something. Don't feel, get lost into exercise for long hours. So I think that we're a very highly addictive culture, to be honest. And right. I think that, I think that what we need to do is take that time. So part of it, I think, is fear. Mm-hmm. And part of it is the change of what does that mean if I actually allow myself. So one of the things I find helpful is, again, I'm a huge fan of the morning because I'm a morning person. Maybe other people aren't. So find that time in your day and just give yourself that 5 or 10 minutes of just being. And that's when the feelings will come up. And that's when you'll know what you need to attend to. Or it might be joy and go, wow, this feels wonderful. I'm in a great place.
Yeah. But to let yourself feel whatever it is.
Just let yourself feel and give yourself permission. And I think part of it too, I want to just add to that. I love my mom. I love her dearly. She's not going to watch this, so I can say more. But anyway, she's not on the internet. But, she came from a culture, I'm not going to say what it is, but where you don't show your emotions, right? You suck it up, right? So I was kind of the soft sibling, right? I was the one that actually felt, oh, she's very sensitive. She's very sensitive. And so it was really, I was feeling, growing up that somehow I was too soft. And so therefore, and the realization is, in many ways, I think I was the feelings for my mother growing up. I was the feelings that she never felt or never gave herself permission to feel. So I think that if you've been told, first of all, that you're too sensitive, delete that, get rid of that. I think that it just makes you sort of more open and willing to be able to experience things on a much deeper level. Of course, if that gets in the way where you feel everything so deeply that it paralyzes you, then that's different. We need to find ways of protecting ourselves and creating more of a balance. But I think sometimes it's our childhood and the upbringing too that can hinder us feeling what we need to feel because our role models didn't know how to do it. They didn't know.
Okay. So that's a perfect doorway into that second piece now with the emotional.
Mm-hmm. And I think that with the emotional room is that I believe we're all grieving right now. That's just my belief system. I've authored 2 grief CDs, MP3s now, and I've traveled North America with funeral services and feel very honored to work with these associations. And really the reality is that that's what's going down right now. And I think what the world needs more than ever is love and kindness. So again, it starts with me and then it goes outwards. So I need to be love and kind with myself. I need to take a look at myself and say, where am I being hard on myself? Where am I, rather than expecting people to come to me because I'm hurting, maybe what I need to do is I need to actually reach out and be that change, as we've heard time and time again, be that change I want to see. And I think that, the support is a very big deal right now. I really believe that we need to support each other. We know we have a loneliness epidemic on our hands. Now it's become magnified more than ever. And I think that we need to come to the plate. I'm a little surprised sometimes when I hear family members that are still doing their usual once a week phone call to their mothers. And meanwhile, she's not even getting out, and she's, her mental health is overwhelming and all of that. So I think what we need to do is we need to take that 10-second pause and we need to step outside of our busy lifestyle and say, who is it that I can support? And it might be you, it might be you. How can I be more loving with myself? But it all starts with asking the question, how am I feeling? The third room, of course, is your physically fit room. And I think that really probably the biggest one I want to touch on that one is that we are in a sleep crisis. When I'm listening to my clients and they've got their technology in their bedroom, they've got their TV in the bedroom, and there's a disconnect about, why am I not sleeping or why am I falling asleep? But then I'm not able to or I am falling asleep, but I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm wide awake. So then as we unravel what's going on, they're turning on the television when they're waking up, or they're turning on the television to get them to sleep. And so we know that the brain never stops working, right? And so what we want to do is help it, though, just to quiet it. And so creating, rituals, like when you think of a child and the structure that we had. I know you've got a son as well. And so, what are the structures that we put in place? Well, he knows it, or she knows that, it's going to be, we have the bath and we brush our teeth, right, and a quiet time and all of that. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to that, because the dilemma is that we've got people here that are on all the time. I mean, I'm working with senior leaders that, they're walking around and they've had maybe 4 hours, 5 hours sleep, and they're creating havoc sometimes in their teams. And that's what they were saying, is that leaders have a higher, they're on the scale of most, a lot of people are like 6 hours and under, but they're even lower than that. And so, but the tragedy is 42% of those leaders that aren't getting sleep have a complete disconnect in the havoc that they're creating with their teams. They're overreacting. They're unresponsive. They could be withdrawn. They could be more aggressive, more dominant. And so what happens is they end up having to do the pooper scooper later, but in fact, they were the ones that caused the problem in the beginning.
Right, and they're blaming everybody else because it's not coming through.
That's exactly it. And again, I don't think that it's, there's a small percentage that, they're intentional. I do believe most people, though, it's just a disconnect because they're simply on the treadmill, right? And I think
we have our blinders.
We have our blinders to survive.
Yeah.
Right. To survive. And I think that's the reality. So I think that for sure the physically fit room, that's a really big one, is being able to be aware of our sleep and find healthy ways. We're a society where we're popping pills, just saying, oh no, it's all good. I take sleep pills at night, and I'm not going to judge anyone. But I think that, there's a lot of naturopath ways, whether it's lavender oil, and, there's some nights where I've got a busy mind and forget about putting it on Kleenex and tucking it in my pillow. I'm actually putting it all over my jammies. I need all the help I can get. But I think that's the other one. I guess one thing I do want to touch on, and this is one that I'm very passionate about, is that, we know more and more that a lot of us have what we call a leaky gut. And what that simply means is that it's the choice of foods that we're putting in our mouth. It's worthwhile for people to look up the dirty dozen. And so those particular foods, for example, have the most chemicals on them, apples being one of them, blueberries. And so what you want to do is you want to find out kale, spinach, find out which ones have the most pesticides on them, and I realize sometimes it's a limited budget, but then decide, okay, well, which one is the most important, and then the next one, and then the next one, and start to build that up. But we are disconnected sometimes with the food that we eat. I think that, when my dad had his first heart attack, the doctor said, Jim, because my dad's name is Jim Collins. I always giggle because, there's, of course, the author of Jim Collins, but it's not my dad. Kind of thought I could take credit for it. But anyway, he said, Jim, if you can avoid these 3 white deaths, which we can imagine what they are: salt, flour. What do you think the next one is? Flour, salt, and sugar. And so if you can minimize those, you will actually help your heart and your brain in ways that you don't realize, because of the fact that, this brain fog people are experiencing. Oh, it's because I'm aging. No. When I hear people say, oh, well, it's that senior moment, I will never say that. I'm not going to reinforce my brain that. I'm going to be 102, have just taught a Pilates class, and I'll see my grandchildren that day, and I'm going to drift off to sleep. So I love that phrase. The choices that I make today determine how I choose to die. The choices I make today determine how I choose to die. Because to me, I'm not going to be hooked up to some machine. I'm going to drift off. Like I'm responsible for me, and I don't want my kids leaning over me and saying, oh my gosh, and then seeing the despair on their face. That's just not how I'm exiting. Absolutely not. And then, of course, your final room, your spiritually fit room, I have it last for a reason. Because truthfully, I believe it's the basement. I believe it's the base of the house.
Totally.
And so if, for example, we've got a leak in that basement, guess what? All kinds of stuff can happen. There can be flooding. There can be mold. There can be all kinds of things that can actually make its way up to the other levels. Now, sometimes people get a little bit stressed out about what does spiritually mean? I don't believe in God. I don't, whatever. Hey, that's cool. It's whatever fills your spirit up.
Right.
I think that sometimes people forget that is that your spiritually fit room is about what anchors you in your life. For me, I happen to believe in God. There was a time I didn't talk about that in my business world. Now I'm just playing full out. I'm not going to push my beliefs on anybody, but I'm not going to hide behind it anymore thinking, oh gosh, you're going to judge me because I believe in God. So for me, I have such relief in knowing that I'm not running the show, because there's times when I get afraid. There's times when I get overwhelmed where I can start thinking I am God. And I'm so glad that God's not on vacation, that I don't have to sub in, because that's when I throw myself off and I go, you know what? I don't need to pretend here. I think that for me, the spiritually fit room is about what's my purpose? Why am I here? Mm-hmm. I need to have meaning. Why is it in some cultures that people are living much longer, well into the hundreds, and they're living joyful lives? It's because they're volunteering and doing something purposeful. They may still be working 2 days a week, and they're doing it because they love it and it brings them joy. Maybe they're caring for their grandchildren.
Right.
It could be a number of things. But again, it goes back to, I mean, one of the things I often ask my audience is create a joy list. You know, and do something on it. Do something on it at least once a week, minimally. And let yourself be that kid. Let yourself be playful.
So, and I think the interesting thing about that last story is number one, or the last room is that number one, a lot of people avoid it because it's so, I don't know, or they're sort of into it, but haven't really gone in deep. It's, you know, one of the big things that's people talk about now is spiritual bypassing. People go on these retreats. Oh my God, it was life changing, blah, blah, blah. And then a month, well, back before COVID, a month later, they're to another one. Oh my God, life, but nothing really changes in their lives.
Right. Yeah.
So they're only sort of dipping the toe in a little bit. So to really step into that room, mm-hmm. I think there's growth that's required in that. Is there not?
It's beautiful what you just said. I love it, because I am one of those people. I am a retreat junkie, because where my heart sings is doing retreats, to be transparent. Mm-hmm. When I host retreats, when I get hired in to work with a team or a leadership team, that's where I really love to play. And so I do at least 2 retreats a year. One of them is always silent. So for me, I agree with you. Like this year, I came into 2021 saying it's going to be different. So now I actually not only do my own mindfulness, which by the way, we can do anytime of the day or night. And I actually, about 4 to 5 times a week now, I'm doing just a half an hour mindfulness session with an actual guide, or a facilitator. And so I agree with you, because I think the more we do it, the more we practice it, the more it integrates into our everyday life. Then what happens? It's like, for example, I was saying to my teacher the other day, so I had to go for blood work. And I said, everybody's on their technology and, with their masks on and everything. And I said, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to actually do my mindfulness right here. Mm-hmm. And he said, good for you, because it can happen anywhere. So again, the more we do anything, it now becomes more sort of a conscious thing. Totally. And we realize that, hey, now I've really integrated. It's part of my thinking before that meeting. I know about what I can do and how I can show up and be present and serve my team or whoever's with me.
Right. And a lot of people think mindfulness is about no thoughts. It doesn't mean that. It just doesn't mean getting lost all over the place in the thoughts.
Totally agree. I mean, a good friend of mine is a former Buddhist monk, and he always says, I'm telling you firsthand, you can't empty your mind. And I think the way for me, I see it sometimes too, is that when the monkey mind happens, I may just see those thoughts like a leaf going down a brook. But the beautiful part, at least the mindfulness that I'm doing, is it's just about befriend that thought. I call it the low 5. So befriend the thought and just let it go by with no judgment, no resistance, and just accept it for coming. And then I love that whole concept of the beginner's mind. And I know you know that. Mm-hmm. And I've really been taking that into my thought process moving forward. So if I'm going to go into a meeting, if I'm going to go before a coaching session with a client, before I do a training, whatever it might be, is like have that beginner's mind. So look at this like it's my first day on the job. Look at this like it's the first time I get to actually use my skills. And so see it in that openness and that curiosity and no attachment to the outcome. And I think it's such a beautiful thing.
And that's something we forget when we're going through the same things over and over, to find that. That's one thing I love kids and now grandkids, because
Right.
it's like you go, they are so present.
Isn't it beautiful? I
Yeah.
love it. I totally love it too, because I know that, so with my grandkids, unfortunately, they live, a distance, a flight away. So it's been a couple of years since we've actually seen them, because of all this stuff. So it's been very difficult. But thank goodness for technology. I am grateful for that. But I love it with my grandson, who's going to be 4 in March, and Nanny will just say, okay, who remembers downward dog? And he runs into the downward dog, or, okay, are we going to do our meditation? And then the hands come up and the legs get crossed. And it's just so adorable. And I think they're so open. And I think this is the time to embrace this with them. And I think that when I hear things about, it's, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Please stop saying that. It's one of those things that make me cuckoo, because the reality is we're all teachable. I just need to keep my mind open to be teachable. And those kind of limiting comments, I think they really do block us from going, oh, well, no, my parts are wearing out, or the brain fog is just normal. It's not normal. It's what we're eating. It's that we're not getting enough sleep. It's that maybe we need to find better ways of coping. I mean, we know right now that 1 out of 2 people will have some form of depression after this first phase is finished. That's scary. And so some will be mild, some of them will graduate. So more than ever.
1 out of 2. Wow.
1 out of 2. Yeah, that's what this scientist was sharing. And they're doing lots of studies right now out of York University. And what he was saying is that, so that's why he's putting on all these mindfulness retreats and sessions for free, because he's very concerned about what's going to happen moving forward. So before, when someone like us, where maybe people brought us in, they parachute, we were the parachuted in, kind of like, okay, go help the team. And then just, maybe they'll get somebody the next year. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be ongoing to support that team, because otherwise people are going to pay harshly. They're going to have to pay out of their budgets, because people are going to be so stressed out. Those sick leaves are going to be massive. So I think more than ever, we need to pay attention and do the prevention now. The tendency, unfortunately, in a lot of systems is that they reach out during crisis. We need to do it during the prevention.
Before, yeah.
Right,
but it's not big enough for them to pay attention yet, right? That's the problem.
The pain isn't great enough. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is there one key thing we haven't covered that keeps people from being the powerhouses they truly are?
Absolutely. Thank you. Great question. The number one thing, and I love that my chiropractor has said this, Dr. Michael Koulas, what would I choose in this moment if I loved myself? You see, I believe it starts with me and ends with me. If Cate's loving Cate, then guess what? Whatever compliments you give me, I can then take it in. But you don't define me anymore. I define me. So once we really take that time and pour into ourselves with that 10-second pause, with that, what do I need in this moment? What will nourish me? Which room do I need to spend time in? And love myself unconditionally. That's the key. To me, it's always the key, is about, asking myself, what would I choose if I loved myself in this moment? Because sometimes, I believe we always know what we need to do. We just need to take the pause.
Love that. So with this, and I mean, right now, it's so critical, I think, for people to focus in all of these areas, because as you say, I knew the mental health challenges were growing. I did not realize it was to that level of 1 in 2 will be dealing with depression. Because I mean, before all this, they were saying 1 in 3 people go through significant mental health. So if half, wow, it's
alarming.
That is. But if you invest in yourself and in these, and it's not a huge amount of time when you really get down to it, it's just what does it mean to be a powerhouse? What could it mean in your life?
Mhm. I think that for me, as I always say to people at the end of a training session, a coaching session, consultation, is that what's one thing that will have the greatest impact? And
Mm-hmm.
it's simple as I'm just going to drink water, 8 glasses a day of good water. By the way, never tap. I want to say that real clear. And no, your little filter thing isn't going to work. Make sure it's quality water. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that you're going to build into your day that pause. Maybe it's that you're going to say, you know what? I need to reach out for help. I'm not doing as well as I thought I was. Maybe it's that, again, you're just going to check into which room needs your help and then take that small action. And it can be so small, but it can have the greatest impact.
I love that. So it's really making it personal to you. What's the one thing?
It is. And, I got to say, we're getting better as a society, but there's still this disconnect from our body. It just alarms me when I see people with so many conditions. I've got a very good friend of mine who's, the cancer's back. There's so many different things, and yet she's so disconnected from how she's eating. Her body is just rampant with inflammation, and it's so hard on me. And then, obviously it was the right time several conversations later when I said, well, me, that your health nut friend, I'd be saying, let's do a detox for 21 days. Yeah, right. And the eyes get rolled. And it's not that I have the answers. Please understand that. I think that they are looking at us, the answers. It is the basics. Why is it 20 years ago, the cancer rate was not what it is? We need to take a look at the wheat that we're eating. Oh my gosh. Is huge, the cocoa beans. I mean, there's so many things that we need to start to take a look at.
Well, please don't say I have to stop coffee.
No. It's not about stopping coffee. We need to take a look at where is it being grown. Where's it being grown? I'm seriously looking at buying organic moving
Organic,
forward,
yes.
right? Because I'm concerned, they're saying there's mold in the coffee beans. And again, where the crops are. And, we don't hear that stuff. We don't hear about that. So again, me being a research junkie, sometimes I have to say, my husband goes, oh my gosh, here she goes again. But I think that, we do need to become much more responsible for what we're putting in our mouth. Is this going to help me or is this going to harm me? And we need to do a little bit of the research to find out, how is this going to work for me? We are so committed to our habits. We may even die with them. And that's the dilemma. We need to be willing to let go and say, is what I'm about to put in my mouth, is it going to help me or is it going to harm me? And I think we all know what it is. I mean, like everybody else, I put on weight after, during COVID. And then I know myself well enough to go, this doesn't feel good. My clothing felt tight. I got to get back into a regime. And so I did, and I'm there now. I think that's the other part is we know what we need to do. If you're munching at nighttime and you're eating stuff you don't feel good about, we know that we need to, okay, so that's one thing I'm going to I'm going to let that go, or I'm going to have fruit already cut up or whatever. And I think, but again, if we're more committed to those habits and we're willing then to take the medication later, if we're willing to get, cancer isn't separate. We all have cancer in our bodies. It's about how do those dark, I always said to my son when he was little, we've all got dark soldiers and we've all got the lighter soldiers. Yep. Which one will you feed? And so our food does that.
So, Cate, now I know if people want to get a hold of your book, of course, it's on Amazon. But if they want an autographed copy, they can go right to your website, right?
And powerfuljourney.com. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would love to, if it's, I know, which is so cool. I've got people that are we're sending out today 40 copies for one organization for their team members because they're feeling at a loss. What do we do? Some of them are turning it into a book club. Other ones are gifting it to adult daughters and sons. And so I'm pretty excited that people are really resonating with the whole resiliency of it.
I love that. And your website's the best place to get a hold of you?
It is. It certainly is. Yes.
Okay. And of course, you're on all the social media and so on.
I am.
So thank you so much, Cate, for joining me.
It's been wonderful.
Truly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Love hanging out with you, my friend.
thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you found it of value, could I ask you a favor? Could you share it on social media and perhaps share what made it so useful to you? That's how we spread word about this. And if you've got a moment, if you could go onto iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and do a quick review on this and share again what made it so useful to you. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Running 'cause I don't know where to go. Walking will just take too long and I can't take it slow. I'll keep on pushing 'cause I know I'll take it farther. And everyone that knows me knows that I am stronger. Leave it all behind, I don't need nothing to distract me. Nothing can get in my way, I know that I'll run free. I got the energy, it's all I need to finish. And everyone that knows me knows that I can do this. Yeah, I know that I can do this. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. Hey, yeah. Oh, just watch me do this. Show me what you got, you think you're able to keep up with me. And if we're side by side, they'll never even be ready. There ain't no telling what will happen next. But I can tell you it's my move and I ain't never stressed. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me.